Cue Dave and Ryan in 3, 2, 1.
It's Dave and Ryan's movie review.
Yeah, no, when we go on the air.
Gotcha. So right now we're on the live stream.
We are on the live stream. We are on YouTube and Facebook.
So let's start,
Okay.
because there's something different in this opening. I don't know if you can tell, Dave, what's different about this one.
This has to be the first movie after he passed away.
When this movie was being edited, he passed away. And in about a half hour, we're going to get to see, I think, we'll use this phrase top 5, but I think a top 5 Stan Lee cameo. The only time Stan Lee plays himself in any of these.
You know, the one I like the most probably is I love the scene in, and I can't remember which, is it the first Spider-Man movie where he's in the library?
Oh, yeah.
And all the action's going on.
Yeah, there are a lot of them that are fun. A few of them felt like, I don't know how we fit him into Black Panther. Yeah. It's a little awkward. But
no, I get that. And okay, we've been talking about it. We talked about it with Chris Evans casting for this one.
Some people didn't like it.
This was just off of her winning the Academy Award.
It was,
wasn't it?
yeah.
Room.
It was. A lot of people have been critical of her, and I feel like a lot of those reasons might be outside of the performances.
Yeah.
Although,
one casting choice I did not care for in this movie, but I don't know. I do not like Annette Bening. I just don't.
That's interesting. I thought she was a really interesting choice, and she's a really important character here. And I liked her well enough, but I don't know if I come in with the baggage that you very clearly have here, Dave.
No, I'm trying to really think of a movie that I really enjoyed her in, and nothing's coming to me.
It's funny when I'm trying to think of them. It's like, no, that's somebody else. Oh no, that's that's Nicole Kidman.
Like American President comes to mind. I remember her being in that.
Yeah, she was in American Beauty.
Yeah,
a lot of movies with America. First. Yeah.
But yeah, and I didn't hate American Beauty, but maybe it's just because she was such a polarizing character in that movie.
My feelings about American Beauty at the time were that it kind of wrapped up in a too convenient way. I felt like this was like, you just put a big bow on this. And there were really interesting things that happened in the movie. I think now we look back at the movie maybe differently. Kevin Spacey's career has taken a different arc than we maybe would have expected.
Which is sad, because I think we've talked about that before. Honestly, I want to see how Nicholas Hoult does, but he is probably my favorite Lex Luthor.
He's an incredibly good Lex Luthor. He can be so scary.
He was. And
I think that movie has its flaws.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I don't necessarily think that the casting of Superman, or obviously him, is anywhere near the problem.
No, but like I said, I think that really, if you look back at all the different Lex Luthors that we've had, and I don't want to get into Smallville too much.
Sure.
Although I know that's where everybody seems to go back to. But Smallville's Rosenbaum, everybody seems to think he's the best one.
I like him.
I do too.
He has a humanity that I think we don't see all the time.
But Spacey was the first real... In the movies, Spacey was the first Lex Luthor that wounded him. You know what I mean? That really injured Superman.
Well, and Hackman's they didn't know what to do with a superhero movie at that point. And I will never criticize Gene Hackman. No. Certainly not now, and probably not ever.
Right.
But they didn't know how to play that. And so he's playing him as this very over-the-top comedic villain, which takes away some of the potential.
It does.
Especially considering we've got, of all people playing the villain, Gene Hackman, and he's not that scary. That's,
No, he was almost comic relief.
He was. And knowing what he can do as a villain part, which, you should have known at that time, and by the time we got to like Unforgiven later, I mean, holy cow, there is no more terrifying person. And evidently a little bit behind the scenes too. He was fairly terrifying. So we've got a movie here. It says, Jude Law.
And we mentioned Jude Law in when we were talking about Captain America. Kind of a waste of talent in this movie. Not saying that he's bad in it.
He's not.
It's just he could have done so much more.
I think that's fair. I think he does a nice job here, but I think the character is a little underdeveloped. I think this movie, and we can talk about that with First Avenger too, this movie's priority is Carol.
Yes.
We've got to like
It's an
Carol.
intro story.
We've got to understand her powers. We've got to understand her situation. We've got to learn about her. And I think the movie does a pretty good job doing that. And I think that she does a really good job establishing that. The villains are going to be secondary. They are in all of those introductory Marvel movies, I think. I mean, maybe we could try to come up with an example of an exception to that, of one of those introductory movies in which the villain isn't equal. But I don't know if I can think of one. It's certainly not true in Iron Man, which you're going to watch, I think,
Yeah,
next.
it's not in that one.
In Thor, I mean, Loki certainly is, but Loki's much more complicated than all this.
Loki is more of a, I would almost, he's a cerebral villain.
Yeah, my gosh.
He more, maybe if you wanted to go there, maybe William Hurt's character in the first Hulk movie with Edward Norton,
That's fair.
because you kind of get what's going on between Bruce and Betty because of what her father does.
But almost like Loki, General Ross is sort of the manipulator as opposed to like the main heavy of it.
Yeah.
And so, which makes it more complicated. It's not unfair at all. But, not... If there's any Marvel scene that I think we can both agree just always works is when they give us exposition with like stars and things floating in the background. I think you'll get to see the beginning of The Dark World, which I know is a movie you're kind of a little anxious about having to see in the middle of the night. Right,
It is, but we'll be okay.
Think of me when you're watching that intro, when it's like just dumping exposition right at the beginning. You're like, oh my gosh, what do we got for the next 2 hours? So there's Annette Bening. She's playing the Supreme Intelligence here as we get into the Kree stuff. And I love getting into this weird Marvel cosmic stuff. The Krees and the Skrulls, and we don't really get into the Shi'ar much, but this is kind of part of my jam, is getting into this. And she's playing also the original Marvel. And that's where we get into complications in terms of like the rights to the name of the character and who the character is and what's going on.
Right.
Is that Carol's not the first Captain Marvel. In
No.
fact, Carol is first introduced in the comics in '68 and is eventually Ms. Marvel by like 77, I think. And because there was another Captain Marvel at that point.
Well, I want to talk about that too as well, is get into the whole Ms. Marvel and all that as well, because I couldn't get into the series.
Okay.
I watched it. That doesn't mean that I could get into it. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course.
So I'm kind of at a loss with that. So
No, I respect that. I understand that. I've certainly had series that I felt that way about. I liked that, but I was also watching it with, a 12-year-old who loves Captain Marvel and Ms. Marvel, and we had read so many of the Ms. Marvel comics, which are great together. And I think that the movie does, or that show, I'm sorry, does some things that I would not have thought would work, and I don't know if they do. But, we want to talk casting. Boy, did they get Ms. Marvel right. She's a delight. It's so interesting watching this one as early as we are in this sequence, because this isn't the first time we've gotten into the cosmic universe, the galactic stuff, because obviously the Guardians have taken us there, and we've had the first Infinity War by the time this one comes out.
Right.
But it's very interesting to watch it here, because this is so different than what we see in Captain America.
Well, and I think that too, a lot of people had, because let's be honest, the casual fan of Marvel knew who Spider-Man was.
Yep.
Okay. Knew who the Hulk was.
Yep.
Knew who Captain America was.
Eventually.
Maybe knew who Iron Man was.
Yeah.
And maybe knew Thor.
Again, maybe. I think that the X-Men, they would have known.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, the X-Men...
Well, at this time, too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking 2008, and it'll be fascinating to go back to that when we get opportunities to really get into things. But The way that we look at these superheroes in 2025 is so different than we did in 2008, and so different than when I was a kid reading these things in the 80s and 90s.
So if you want to go, as soon as you should have music coming through that headset in front
Okay.
of you there.
So I just put it off?
Yep. As soon as this song ends, we're gonna go on Kickin' Country.
Okay.
So, and I usually just take one ear off so I can hear everything else that's
Makes
going
sense.
on. And the mics go hot, I believe, right around 15 seconds. So when you see this timer go 15 seconds, that means that the mics are turned on.
Okay.
So anything you'd say at that point would go over the air, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
So once we hit 15, just silence, and then when the song ends, I'll
Okay.
intro it in, and we'll talk
Okay.
for a moment and keep it short.
I don't think I have a DJ head because when I'm trying to do it just off one ear, it's not working, man.
You can't hear it in one ear,
It just slides off,
but can you hear it at least?
Yeah.
Okay.
but it's going to slide right off.
Maybe I have to be bald.
I don't know, man. I didn't realize there was a certain head shape that was required for DJing at this point.
Who knows?
But I'll just keep my eyes
So
open.
let's talk for a quick second before we have to go on air. We got about a minute and a half.
Okay.
About really getting to see, these shapeshifters, basically, is what they are.
The scrolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another actor that you could not have cast better. I can't say I've ever seen him in something that I hated is Ben Mendelsohn.
Absolutely. And it's so important to get that part right here because they're really changing the way we look at scrolls.
Yes.
For the most part in the comics, the scrolls are it's cut and dry. I mean, they're bad.
You got to give him.
Yeah.
He has to bring humanity to it.
He does, and he does.
Yes.
And so it's just such an incredible bit of casting to get that right, to make sure that we feel sympathy for characters that we'll go into this feeling we'll have none. Because this movie switches the sympathetic characters in the narrative as it goes on, which is not easy to do. And so you have to have the right people playing the parts.
Right. And so when we're getting ready to go on the air, when we come back off of that, I want to talk about the was it Secret Wars that was the Skrulls took over? When was that one? What series was that?
Oh gosh, I'll remember the name by the time we get back.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that. So, okay, go ahead and put them on. That's Jordan Davis with Next Thing You Know on Kickin' Country, 98.3, 1067. It's 9:28. Dave hanging out here in the conference room and with Dr. Jason Olsen. Let's put some respect on that name. He's joining us as I am doing my Man versus Marvel event. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a minute. Right now, we're watching Captain Marvel, which is the second movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you go chronologically, and that's how we're doing it. If you want to follow along, check out our YouTube page, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review, or our Facebook page, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review. Really quick, though, the American Red Cross, they're going to be hosting a blood drive on March 10th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Carbon County Event Center. Now, walk-ins are welcome, but if you would like to schedule an appointment, just give them a call, 636-3702. So we've got all this, lots of stuff going on today. I'm glad that I've got Jason here to hang out with me to talk about stuff. And if you want to continue the conversation, like I said, go to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review. Like, follow, subscribe, all those great things. And we're going to be doing this for quite a few days. We'll talk more about that coming up in just a bit. But right here, I've got Rascal Flatts on the way on Kickin' Country. So yeah, let's get into that. Because
Okay.
there was a time which harkens back to, and they kind of touched on it in the series that was on. It was a series. It was on Disney Plus.
Yeah, Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion.
And that's the storyline that we were trying to think.
That's
The
what we're-
secret word got us thrown
Secret
off.
through us. So the Secret Invasion really is it as big of a storyline in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as, say, Infinity War or something like that?
You mean like in the original comics?
Yes.
I wouldn't say it has the major repercussions of something like Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, or all the Infinities. One thing that Marvel often would do is find these major storylines that would just drive us through for a summer or a season. And so there were always these ways of trying to get these giant storylines that will change everything. And so Secret Invasion was that, finding out that a lot of the characters that you knew were not what you thought they were. And so the Secret Invasion series did that and gave us some of those shocking twists that some characters that we have thought we've known for a long time were secretly Skrulls, except they decided to do it in a way that wasn't that interesting in the series, which I don't think was one of the stronger moments in the series.
Exactly.
Disney Plus.
It did introduce the storyline, though.
It did.
And it got people thinking about things, because I know one of the biggest things that came out of Secret Invasion, the series, is at what point was Rhodey gone?
Exactly.
And I know people were concerned and questioning that the whole time.
Sure.
That, at what point did they take him?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing. That's a fun question. And I love the idea of having the Nick, the series that's all Fury.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a movie where we get maybe the most Fury that we get in any of the MCU movies, which is fun. And we're going to get to that part
and with
soon,
a couple of eyes, too.
Yeah, two of them. Interesting.
And we find out, honestly, what happens.
The last time that he trusted...
It's not what you've been told.
It's the last time he trusted somebody.
That's right.
But I like that, too, because that's
don't have to know that it was a cat.
Well, and... Nick Fury's not somebody who's going to say this.
That's
right?
true.
I mean, this is not a guy who's going to tell that story.
That's very true.
And this is a guy who is so much about the mythos of Fury. And so I like that idea. I like the way that they play that. And it's funny.
And the other character that they bring back in this one is Clark Gregg's character as Agent Phil Coulson.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's a what's the word I'm looking for? If it's like if it was something that had to happen, if it was like that moment, like he said in the movie, in the Avengers, if it was that moment.
Yeah.
But it would have been interesting to see Clark Gregg, or to see Phil Coulson still alive throughout some of the other movies.
Sure, for sure. And this S.H.I.E.L.D. series has a lot of really interesting moments.
It does.
And I really enjoyed a lot of that. But, those are tangential at best to the main MCU. And so it's hard to see that much of a connection. But he is always great to see on the big screen. So this movie is giving you all sorts of Easter eggs if you care deeply about this stuff. So Annette Bening's character is Marvel, the Supreme Intelligence. She also goes by in that scene that we just saw when they're interacting, Wendy Lawson. Why is that relevant? Well, you got the guy here to talk about these things.
That's why I brought you in.
Walter Lawson was the alter ego of the Captain Marvel of like the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
And so that's very much equating her as the counterpart for that character. And so he was a Kree who didn't really follow a lot of the Kree philosophies because he spent time on Earth and began to respect humans. And he became kind of the one of the ultimate Marvel good guys in terms of like integrity and morality and all those things. And so he serves as Captain Marvel for a very long time. He dies in the 80s in a Jim Starlin series where he dies of cancer. And that is the death of Captain Marvel is really one of the best comics I've ever read. It's so emotional, so powerful. And Carol is always kind of on the periphery and doesn't officially become Captain Marvel until the 2010s. But she takes on all sorts of other identities and all sorts of other roles. So we get that. We also were told that Wendy Lawson works for Pegasus. And Pegasus is a reference to the Pegasus Project, which was a research facility that was introduced in Marvel Comics in the 70s, where all sorts of strange creatures from either other dimensions, other worlds, other universes, were kept to keep safe and be researched upon. So we're getting all sorts of ties to earlier portions of the Marvel Universe in the comics, which I'm here for.
And I think that's one of the main things, and I don't know when that started becoming a big deal for people. I don't know if it was the Marvel movies that did that or not, but yeah, Easter eggs and
Yeah.
different little things that harken to another thing. In the movie we just watched, the Captain America movie, I just saw this the other day, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. When they walk in to the exposition hall at the World's Fair,
Yes.
there's the costume there.
Yep. Yep.
The red costume, and I can't remember what it says that it's called.
I can't remember.
But it is the precursor to Johnny Storm's uniform for the Fantastic Four.
Sure, and well, Jim Hammond is I think we can probably argue the first like Marvel character. Obviously, there's different names for the characters and all that, but the original Human Torch was not Johnny Storm, but it was a sort of an android character who ended up teaming up with Captain America and the Submariner in World War II as the Invaders. So that's kind of a cool way of seeing like this really, really early example of Marvel herodom without going into details on the character, because that's not what that's about. But one thing that's really cool about those Easter eggs is it shows us that they're playing to multiple audiences. You know, it's got to play toward people who didn't spend their entire childhoods going back and reading 70s Captain Marvel comics.
They've got to keep it interesting.
Yeah, but also playing to that so that I can watch this and I can be happy and I can think of Project Pegasus and know what it means, and yet other people can watch this movie and just get a good time out of it without having to worry about that. I think sometimes movies might err too much in one direction versus the other, and I think a movie like this does a pretty good job of at least keeping me happy. I can't speak for every comic book sicko on that front.
That's the thing though too is you don't want, because let's face it, we run into this issue with Star Wars. We always talk about the fact that, you know what, you can make the perfect Star Wars movie and somebody's still going to have something to say about it.
Oh, absolutely.
So you've got to fill that void with people that enjoyed the comics and know what they're doing and know what they're seeing.
Yeah.
But then you've also got to make it entertaining for the normal person off the street that can go and watch it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that we live in an era where it's very easy to criticize and have your voice heard for that criticism.
Oh, very, yes.
And that goes farther. Me saying that I like this movie is not going to go as far, as far as social media interactions as somebody who complains about it. And that's just a simple fact. And so it's very interesting to have this forum. We get to talk about it in positive ways.
Right.
And really lots of very cool effects here, I think, in terms of like the space battles and the different things that we've got. I think this movie just does a nice job of getting us into that mode of the type of laser beam fights and things, kind of playing off with Star Wars a little bit. But then eventually it's going to drop us into a world that's not that at all.
No.
Quite literally,
video.
because we're about to drop right in. Hey, it's the 90s now, Dave. It was the 90s all along. This is like The Village.
I miss Blockbuster Video. The Village. I miss Blockbuster Video.
At least you didn't say you missed The Village.
No, I don't miss that. The funny thing about, we'll talk Blockbuster here really quick.
But we have to. There it is.
In one.
It's a commercial for Blockbuster all of a sudden.
When they first came out with DVD. I'm not talking Blu-ray. I'm talking DVD, old school DVD. The cutting edge technology of the time.
Sure.
My wife and I went and bought a home theater system that had a DVD player.
Okay.
And it was so great to go to Blockbuster because nobody had DVD players.
Yeah.
So we could see whatever we wanted to.
Yeah, that's funny. No, I mean, I'm old enough. I remember going to get the VHS stuff, and before even Blockbuster, where we would just go to like a little local VHS store. And
Video Verns.
I don't know what it was I can't remember what it was where I grew up in LA.
I can tell you right now where we're at now, the dollar store over by Lynn's. That was Video Verns, man. That was
that's cool.
That was big time.
I bet. But yeah, when you got to the point here where we are in the 90s, you'd get to rent a movie and a video game. Oh man, life was good.
Go ahead and put your headset on there.
Absolutely.
You know, every time I hear one of those promos, I get chills, and it reminds me why I'm doing this. That's right. 9:40. Let's do a quick check of the weather. Brought to you this hour by Dr. Daniel Cowley and the crew up there at Castle Valley Orthodontics. Today we're looking for a high of 43, a low of 27. Yes, it is snowing. That's okay. We'll survive it. 43 again tomorrow and 49 on Saturday. So not too bad of a weekend. All we got to do is get through today, right? Currently outside, we're about 36 degrees, and we're sitting in the conference room at Castle Country Radio watching Marvel movies. Right now, I've got Dr. Jason Olsen with Utah State University Eastern here hanging out with me. He is my go-to guy on anything Marvel. You know, we've been talking about it. We talk about Captain America. Right now, we're watching Captain Marvel, and a lot of great insight. If you want to catch this and check it out, all you've got to do, go to our Facebook page. Go to Dave and Ryan's Movie Review. Go to Dave and Ryan's Movie Review YouTube channel. And we're live streaming the whole event. We're going to be doing it until I give up or until I finish on Sunday afternoon right around 1:30. So we've got all of that going on right now. We've got the live show going on Kickin' Country. I'll do it again tomorrow. If I make it that far, I should be okay. I think I can do it. But it's great to get conversations with you and have you in here on this one, Dr. Olsen, because like I said, you are all things Marvel when it comes to things like this, and I enjoy getting your insight and talking to you about it.
I appreciate that. This is my jam. I love being able to talk about these things, and so I love your project here. I don't want to stay awake this long, but I'll pop in to help you with this.
From time to time, he'll be back with us. But yeah, let's get back to the music, shall we? We're here on Kickin' Country, and coming up, I've got Nate Smith on the way.
So much 90s. But not only does she land in the 90s, she lands in the 90s, and we're gonna
smack dab in the middle.
We are gonna shove the 90s as far down your throat as we possibly can. There are Smashing Pumpkin posters on the wall. We've got everything we could.
You get Blockbuster Video. You get Radio Shack.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything more 90s that you could squeeze into this one.
Well, let's give the movie a little more time.
We will.
We get Coulson with hair.
We get Coulson with hair. That's another thing I was going to ask. What is your thoughts on de-aging to put them in another movie?
The technology is getting so good that it's less obtrusive. I mean, I think back to some of the earlier attempts at it in the past, and it was always so clunky and awkward. And maybe we'll look at what we've got now and see it as clunky and awkward. I think it works pretty well in this one, frankly.
I think so too. I loved when they did it at the beginning of Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
I loved it in that. Because, every now and then it's okay to see these guys as younger characters.
What was that movie? And maybe you'll remember this one. It's Tommy Lee Jones, Clint Eastwood.
Space Cowboys.
Space Cowboys. And if you remember how they did the de-aging there, it was like young actors, but with their voices.
Yeah,
like,
it wasn't good.
It was not good.
You know who nailed Tommy Lee Jones? I'll be totally honest with you.
Oh, gosh.
Josh Brolin.
He sure did.
He nailed it.
Unbelievable.
And was that the second Men in Black
It's
movie.
third, I think.
I thought the third one was with Hemsworth.
I thought there was a third, and then there was the
third.
The Men in Black World.
You're right.
Yeah. But yeah, he's great. No, look at all this 90s.
Rock the Vote.
We got Rock the Vote posters. We've got Bush posters.
311.
Yeah. I mean,
nothing real. Honestly, nothing speaks 90s more than that Rock the Vote poster. Really.
It really is fantastic.
You think about it.
Yeah, there's
your Smashing Pumpkins. Yeah. Infinite Sadness.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. You want to know how pretentious the 90s could be? There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're running now. We're chasing. I love the cars and things. I mean, they're putting the effort in.
One of my favorite scenes in this movie is coming up.
Yeah.
When she fights the old lady.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Parkour.
Yeah, this is good stuff. We get our what we call this, a bus, a train. What are we calling this? We get good fight scenes in buses and trains in the MCU.
Yes, hallways,
elevators, if we need to.
Yes,
we'll get to talk about that eventually.
I'll tell you what, honestly, and that's one of the things that really made me love because Mike and I talked about Daredevil, the series.
Oh, okay.
Those fight scenes that they did in close quarters in that show,
Yeah.
loved it.
Well, we were talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is obviously on the brain because of this movie.
Right.
Really good close quarters fighting in that because you had, Agent May and they really emphasized some really good stuff for a TV show. Okay, here we go.
And I think, quite honestly, they could still make it work.
It's a good bit.
It is.
It's yeah.
Well, and it, the Mallrats script is not lost on me.
Yeah.
Because he's probably going to film it.
He is. That's
it.
that's the gag. I think that he's on his way to film Mallrats. He's quoting lines from Mallrats. I think that what he was just weak at this point because he was dying.
He did everything he could.
So one of your favorite moments in the movie is when Captain Marvel punches an old lady. Hey, she's right.
Maybe that tells people something about me. I don't know, but
you know what? Captain Marvel was right, and it would have been much more awkward had the old lady not
fought back.
been doing parkour on a train. I love how no one's suspicious of this old lady.
She just gets up and leaves.
I mean, and granted, maybe the idea of this woman in this green spacesuit would feel weird.
Maybe.
But yeah, I believe they had to overdub Lee's lines with outtakes from Mallrats because his voice was just weak. And
well, speaking of dubbing, and I watched it once, and I don't think I should ever have to watch it again. Madam Web. Did you ever catch that one?
Twice.
The
I
villain in that, you could tell that they were having troubles with his audio the whole movie.
They did.
It was just not good.
I will tell you, and you judge me all you want on this. I think that my experience watching Madam Web was one of the most delightful movie-going experiences I had last year because it was so wonderfully bad that I just couldn't.
There are movies that are that way.
I couldn't look away. And the moment where the expositional character just repurposes and changes the power of responsibility quote is just so remarkably dumb that I applauded in the theater. My wife and I were there with my daughter who was on a date, and we were chaperoning, and we sat far back so I wouldn't embarrass my daughter, but I still did applaud when that line came up. How does it go in the movie? It's when you take on the responsibility, great power will come.
Something like that.
Oh man, I feel like applauding right now, Dave. The audacity that it takes to do that. I enjoyed the movie. I don't have any doubt. Is it good? Of course not. but I enjoyed the heck out of it. Yeah. I thought Dakota Johnson played it like she didn't know what was happening, and she wasn't sure why she was in this
And I think
movie.
she would be the first person to admit that.
Exactly. And I thought she was great in it because it was all so dumb.
Just got to come out and apologize for it right
Yeah,
out of the gate.
it's fair.
Not even go on any. I think she didn't. I want to say she didn't do much promotion for it.
I thought she did some,
they
and it was.
knew how it was going to be.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Has there ever been, speaking of that movie, that you can think of in any of these movies? Has there ever been a character, and we'll talk a superhero character in any of these movies that was just a waste of a character? Not necessarily the actor that portrayed them, but the character itself. It's just like, why did you even do this to this person?
So we're thinking like specifically of like superhero types that fulfill that.
Why did you even do this to this person, or why was this person even in this movie? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me think about that.
Because I'm trying to think about it too, and I just
I mean, I think you can make arguments for Quicksilver.
Yeah.
In Ultron, because his time in there is so brief, but obviously he has to be there because that movie we're building Wanda, and so he's just not a character that they're that interested in exploring, which is unfair to the character because Quicksilver's great in the comics.
Did he maybe get some redemption in the X-Men movie?
Oh gosh, yes. I remember there's one of my favorite, like when Facebook history pops up of like posts from the past. I remember one of my old students says, who do you think's going to be the better Quicksilver, like before either of those movies came out? And then we had this conversation about both of them.
Alta Vista, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, how much more 90s do we want to get? Look, we're in an internet bar.
Internet cafe.
Yeah, cafe, sorry. So we're looking at Pegasus, Project Pegasus, which I mentioned before, which because this is Marvel, that would be an acronym for something, but I'm not about to tell you what.
Well, it has to be an acronym.
It is.
Got to work on that.
Yeah.
We'll get there here in just a minute.
Another very 90s thing, sexism.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness we got rid of that
Right?
in the 90s.
Ooh.
You know, we did it. Of course, you're going to watch Iron Man next.
That's true.
So we'll see how that worked out.
That's true. So what we talked about too was the fact that, you know, it's sad that you will never see Tony and Deadpool on the screen together.
That's fair. That's a good point.
Two alpha males just go.
That's funny. Okay, I love how often they tease the eye thing in this movie. Right? It becomes this wonderful running gag.
It's not like foreshadowing at all.
No. Well, you know, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about is why we decided to watch these in chronological order as opposed to the release order. Because obviously this is not intended to be watched second, or else you wouldn't really, all you would know of Nick Fury would
Right, you
be
wouldn't get
that
that
end.
part. You wouldn't get that gag.
Yeah,
I get that.
the only thing you get would be he showed up like in that post-credit scene that I barely paid attention to. and so I think that's really interesting to think about that. So why did you decide to do it that way?
Because I've always wanted to do it.
Okay.
I just never, you know, because we know that there's certain things that and it doesn't matter. There's never a definitive list either.
No,
if you think
that's
about it
fair.
that way. Somebody's always going to say, "Oh, you should have watched this second," and then you know somebody's always
Yeah.
going to have that opinion about it. But it's just interesting to get a different take on things and see things and be like, "Okay, now that maybe makes sense now."
Sure.
Whereas it didn't before, but now it does. Does that make?
Yeah, I always lean toward watching them as they were released because as that's what the filmmakers kind of assumed
Right.
that you would have under your belt. I
Right.
mean, I think it's fun to watch them this way. I think it's fun to watch them whatever way. You should just randomly draw
But then,
one out
like
of
you
the
said,
hat.
you're not going to get the eye gag in this.
You will not get the eye gag, and so because people have asked me, well, what order should we watch the Star Wars movies in? It's like it's release order. Because yeah, you can watch them. I'm sure you have, right? Watch them from one to.
That's how we did it.
Yeah.
We did the
But-
Marvel, the Forced Awakened, we call it. The
But-
29 hours of
But
Star
when
Wars.
you do it that way, and you found this, is there things that are revealed or done in like episode 1 that just don't mean anything, or there are things that would not have that shock value that they did when we first watched them back on.
Here in just a minute. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Ella Langley with If It Weren't for the Wind on Kickin' Country, 98.3, 106.7, 953. Do you like country music? That's a fair question, I guess.
I
Right?
think it's a fair question. Here we are watching all these movies together. I like a lot of country music.
Yeah.
I probably like a lot of older country music more than the contemporary stuff.
Same.
But I don't listen to a lot of the contemporary stuff, though here I am on the radio station. I should.
That's right. That's right. Hanging out this morning with Dr. Jason Olsen from USU Eastern as we're into our Man versus Marvel event. This is a lot of fun we've been having without you. Well, unless you've been with us all along since 7 o'clock this morning. We'll wrap this up Sunday at about 1:30 in the afternoon, right in there. We'll talk more about the whole event, but if you want to see how it's going as far as the live stream, you can check out our Facebook page, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review, as well as Dave and Ryan's Movie Review on YouTube. Go ahead, like, subscribe, follow the whole thing. We'll be here for 78 hours doing this and just enjoying the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All the first 33 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, over 78 hours of film. And so far, so good. We're 2 movies in, or a movie and a half in, I guess we should say. The first one we watched was Captain America, the First Avenger. Now we are into Captain Marvel. I'm watching them chronologically, but we're kind of noticing there's some things in this Captain Marvel movie that if you watched them chronologically, you wouldn't get. Like if you've never seen Captain Marvel, Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury's character, has both of his eyes. And there are a lot of jokes that lead towards what happens. So it's interesting. So check it out. Once again, check out our Facebook page, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review, as well as the YouTube channel, same name. And we'll be here taking care of this. I got Fox News coming up. We're going to get one from Cole Swindell here on Kickin' Country. So yeah, I never really thought of that in watching them chronologically. You don't get that gag.
No, you don't get the gag. And in Star Wars, it's no surprise when Darth Vader reveals himself to be Luke's father. I mean, it doesn't mean anything.
But no, what threw us when we did that is, of course, we started with episode 1 and worked our way forward.
Sure.
And we're thinking, okay, we've got 10 movies. 11, actually, because we threw Solo in there.
Okay.
But then we're like, no, we were looking at it's like, no, there was a Clone Wars movie.
Animated.
But it was still released in theaters, so we had to throw that in there. So it ended up being 12 different movies.
Sure.
And it was interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
Once again, Clone Wars never was my favorite. The the animated movie.
Oh, okay.
But still, it was interesting.
Yeah.
To watch it that way.
Well, I think that it's interesting, to look back now, and I don't want to. I think we're probably pretty close in age, and so growing up with the original trilogy, that was the jam. I mean, that was the thing. And the prequels I was very excited about. I remember in '99 lining up outside the theater.
I did for every one of them.
Yeah, I had a buddy that I met there who was like in a full Jedi robe. Didn't know he was going to do that. I felt pretty dumb next to him. And just that energy and excitement of the midnight shows. I didn't see Revenge of the Sith midnight show because I was working a overnight shift at a dairy in Vegas. So I was not able to go at that point because I was loading ice cream freezers in the middle of the night. The jobs we have to get to where we want to go, right? And yet, I realized that at a point, like, those weren't for me. Those were for the kids that were coming up. And so I think I still enjoy a lot of them. I kind of like Phantom Menace. I think it's my favorite of the three.
See, my favorite of the three is Revenge of the Sith. That is...
You're an edgier guy than me.
The end-all, beat-all. Yeah. That is my favorite. Yeah, Darth Vader's my jam.
See, I think you're just a little edgier than me. Here's my big argument on those. And I think talking about Star Wars is completely valid in this movie because I think it's playing with some of those things. That's my rationalization for why we get to talk about this. I think that it's really... Phantom Menace, I think, is really cool. I think it has a lot of really cool stuff. I think Darth Maul is fascinating. There's probably the best lightsaber battle that takes place anywhere.
In Phantom Menace?
Is Phantom Menace.
Agree with that.
But here's my really hot take on Phantom Menace. I think that trilogy is better if it just doesn't exist. So while I think it's the best of those three movies, if you just start at the beginning of what we get with Attack of the Clones and then just stretch that into three movies, that's probably better.
Yeah, I couldn't get into Attack of the Clones.
Well,
Phantom Menace was okay. It was
sure.
It was good.
That pod racing
Attack of the Clones
scene
kind of tapered off for me, but yeah, Revenge of the Sith was great. And then the last three, I had fundamental issues with just about every one of them. But episode 9, I don't fault because they had so much that they had to clean up from 8.
Oh, I fault. I find lots of fault.
9?
Lots of fault in 9. We did not need Palpatine back.
No.
Darth Vader's redemption in Return of the Jedi is just completely wasted. It's just gone because he just comes back for no real reason at all. I liked Last Jedi. There's a lot of it that I liked. I mean, it's a mess in places. I acknowledge this, but I liked a lot of it. But 9, I want to be a defender of all these things. I had such a hard time defending 9.
The biggest thing that I took away, the biggest problem that I had with 8.
Mm-hmm.
And 8's the one where she went and found Luke, right?
Yes.
Okay. I have a big problem with that because there's that scene where she's going to find him and she sees the X-Wing fighter underwater, and that is a throwaway.
Yeah, that's fair.
That is a throwaway because to me the coolest thing would have been instead of having him, I understand the reasoning why they did it. I get it. But how about during that fight scene with the white sand and the red undertone and all that stuff, when it's just starting, how about instead of having him walk out, when the battle starts, why don't you see an X-Wing fighter come flying through?
That'd be
People
cool.
would have gone crazy.
They would have.
And I think that's where they should have ended that movie.
Yeah.
Before he walked out.
That's fair. I mean, I like a lot of it. I think there's some of the coolest stuff in the whole series is in that movie. But there's also a lot of other stuff. And I think what you said before about all the work 9 has to do, why on earth did they have different showrunners or movie runners and directors there writing entirely different things and seemingly without collaboration? It just doesn't make any sense.
And there's got to be an issue, too, somewhere in there. I don't know if it's Kathleen Kennedy that's finally going to retire or what. But, you know, you had the original director of Solo walk away from the project.
Yeah.
Or got fired or whatever.
Sure.
And Ron Howard had to come in and finish it.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and, you know, I really, one of my favorites. Thanks for that.
That's funny. That's good stuff.
One of my favorites of the whole series is Rogue One. Rogue One is, to me, is a fantastic movie. And the great thing about Rogue One is you're sitting there and you're watching it and you're thinking, every person that's in this movie is going to die.
Exactly. It's a little bleak. I haven't watched that one with the kids yet.
Oh, Nine Inch Nails shirt.
Oh, yeah. I've been taking notes. Nick Fury earlier asked if she wanted his AOL password. So I think they should have had one of those. I mean, I don't know exactly what year we're in here. Where are we? Is this 90?
Let's see.
Because I think that she should have done something with like those ubiquitous CDs that you got mailed to start your AOL accounts back in the day. Just start flinging those around.
That would have been good.
You know, we're here to give you more additional material if you need it, Marvel.
They're saying 95.
95. That sounds
95.
That sounds about right.
So.
And so yeah, I don't know if we were getting those. I don't know if CDs would have been the means of downloading or not downloading, getting AOL. I guess it would have been.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying. Yeah, I don't know what else you'd have. It was a weird time, friends.
I remember.
All the young people listening.
I'm going to throw some young people if they're out there listening right now. I remember the whole dial-up internet. I remember dial-up internet.
You can make the sound.
I remember when, and that's why. This is getting a little off topic, but the movie had Deadpool in it. So the movie The Proposal.
Oh,
you
sure.
Ever seen that one?
Yeah.
When he takes her up there, and she's like, "What is that noise?" When you run out of time, put in more dimes.
Yeah. It was a weird time. That
It
if
was.
you wanted to like download something, I remember if I wanted to get like an article, I would like bring a magazine in and just wait because it was going to take a good 10 minutes to see something. Yeah.
Which is funny because now looking forward, when we talk about things like that, if I have to wait for more than like 60 seconds for something like, what is going on? Hey, who's that?
That seems to be our hero. But she seems to have existed in some other form at some other time. Maybe she's not as alien as we seem to think. So I don't know if you noticed the sweatshirt I'm wearing. I don't know if you cared. It's got a symbol on it.
Yeah.
And this is deliberately being worn today for this movie because this is the symbol that represents the character Quasar.
Okay.
Who is a character I care deeply about. And this is not a Quasar movie, but it is Quasar adjacent. So I think I'm justified in getting into this. Quasar was the really first storyline after Quasar has gotten a new name. Every superhero, it seems, goes through about 6 different names at different points. He is the security head for Project Pegasus, which is where they're trying to go to find information out. And so a lot of the stuff here is kind of playing in with different aspects of Quasar sort of tangentially. He's another cosmic hero. When Mark Gruenwald created Quasar, he wanted to create a human cosmic hero because most of the other like universal non-Earth characters, they were also not human. And so you would have characters like Silver Surfer and Captain Marvel, the original, not the one we're watching, who were from different worlds. So they didn't have that same attachment to Earth, that same sort of connection to humanity. Obviously, this version of Captain Marvel came much later, but she's kind of in both worlds in this movie. And I think that's really interesting, that she's human, but she doesn't actually know she's human. And so she's giving a sense of humanity that the Kree are trying to repress. And I think that's kind of a cool thing here. And yeah, was that just a way for me to get to talk about Quasar?
Absolutely.
Probably.
And that's okay.
You should ask me if I'm writing a book about Quasar.
Are you writing a book about Quasar? You certainly seem to have enough knowledge about it.
My gosh, what a great question, Dave. Yeah, I am currently working with my publisher. Hopefully I'll get the final proofs and we'll get that book out there maybe, hopefully by the end of 2025, 2026. And that's going to be all about Quasar, which was a 60-issue run that took place between 89 and 94 that was written by Mark Grunwald, who is my favorite comic book writer, and I wrote about in the Captain America book. And there's a lot of stuff in this movie that kind of pops up in Quasar along the way, because Quasar was really, really in awe of the original Captain Marvel, because he saw him as like this kind of flawless superhero, even though the original Captain Marvel would not see himself in that way at all. And so lots of Kree involvements pop up in that comic as well.
I can hear you just fine, sir.
So far, so good.
I've only been in here for 3 hours. Come on.
It shows a lot of confidence in you, Dave.
Yeah, I like how he said so far, so good. All right, this is a Man vs. Marvel event tied in with Dave and Ryan's movie review. We do a movie review show on KOAL at 7 o'clock on Saturday nights. You can tune in for that. But this is tied into that. It's called Man vs. Marvel. 33 Marvel movies, back to back to back until infinity, it seems like. 78 hours. I'm going to try and stay awake and watch all of these movies. But the great thing about it is I've got people like Jason coming in to keep me active and keep me talking about these things. If you've ever got a Marvel question, this is the guy to have, Jordan. Well, all right. Well, I guess it's not Star Wars, so I can't say that. You know, it's do or do not. That's Star Wars. I have a suspicion that you thought I was going to say that. Apparently I've got to relearn everything I know. So we're going to be fine. We're doing this, Jordan. And yeah, Jason's going to come in and out throughout the next few days. We're going to talk some great movies and talk some great Marvel stuff. Great conversations going on. But if you want to see how it's all happening, and, you know, if it is riveting television, really. Check out our YouTube feed, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review, and our live stream on Facebook, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review. We'll be doing the whole 78 hours of it. This is a lot of fun. These are movies that I like, and that I think that makes a difference. He does. He does. We're having a lot of fun. We're watching Captain Marvel right now, and we're getting through this, and then the next movie on the list is really the one that I think everybody's like, okay, now he's into something. And then that's the Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man. But we got to wait for that, and that'll come. But we're getting through this first.
All right. Come on, there's good stuff going on in this movie.
There is. Well, there's my man. There's Ben Mendelsohn.
Geez, Jordan. let us watch. No, it's
Took the cat. Oh.
Of course.
Almost as though he's going to play a part later on.
Who knows? Who knows? Goose. It's good. It's a good name.
Another. Well, that's an '80s reference, though.
We're going back a little farther for that one. Yeah. Evidently, I did my research before this, and not just reading comics my entire life, but also looking up the IMDb. And evidently, Brie Larson, very allergic to cats.
Oh,
Yeah, so they had to.
Benadryl on staff.
Well, I don't know if it was a whole bunch of CGIing for that. I don't know how you
that's it.
really
Yeah,
replicate
you could
that.
do that too now.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't think she can handle cats.
Interesting.
Which is unfortunate because her character would be the one most associated with cats, I think, of anybody in the Marvel Universe. Although in the Marvel comics these days, you do have like Marvel pets, where a lot of Avengers have different cats and different animals.
Well, you brought it up, and we'll switch over to DC for a minute. Did you ever watch Super Pets? Did your kids get into that? Did you watch it?
Well, the movie?
The DC movie?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was a great movie.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. The way you set that up, like you started this, like what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about animals now.
That's fine. We can talk about animals because this is a top 5 Marvel animal from the MCU.
I would think so.
I don't know who else we're looking at. The screaming goats in Love and Thunder.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. What other animals do we have? Is this too early in this this watch to have a conversation about this?
Well, you got Squirrel Girl and all of her.
Well, sure. I was thinking MCU, and she hasn't made it to the MCU yet, which is a tragedy, frankly. But that's fine. I'm just trying to think of the MCU movies, what we've had. I don't think there's been a whole lot.
I'll take notes.
Yeah.
I'll
Let me know.
back.
Well, like we've done with this, we're taking notes on all of the really, really aggressive 90s references that this movie's giving us. There's Ronan. Mm-hmm. We'll see him later, or before this, I guess.
Later before.
Sure.
And and that's another one of those characters that you're not going to get a reference to unless you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy.
And Korvath here, he's a pursuer. He also shows up in the first Guardians, and he's there amongst the Kree and Yon-Rogg and all those folks. But he also pops up first there, but I don't know if his character is like compelling enough to necessarily worry about the reference, but I think certainly we would say that for...
Yeah, we get into this and we get into these movies, and since we're dealing with a cosmic movie, we're going to watch them later on. But I think that the Guardians of the Galaxy's movie, with all three of them, brought in an entirely new audience to Marvel. It's
hard at this point to really think about what a risk it was for the Guardians movie. Those are characters that had no footprint whatsoever.
Absolutely.
We were talking earlier about how Captain America and Iron Man were not as well known as other Marvel properties at the time. I mean, in fact, Marvel would have sold them to Sony or Fox or whomever, but they didn't want them at that point, because when Marvel was going through tons and tons of issues with their rights, they were going through bankruptcy. They were just selling off whatever they could sell off. And so that's why they sold Spider-Man, they sold Fantastic Four, they sold X-Men. They were willing to sell Iron Man and Cap, but everyone was like, no thanks, we're good. And so to think of them being able to turn those characters into the household names and just undeniable parts of pop culture that they are now is unbelievable.
Got some technical stuff going on.
That's okay. We're finally getting cable in this room, huh? I think watching...
That can almost be another 90s reference.
I think it is.
Cable.
No, I know. Well, that's what I'm looking at here. Because I think I remember when we first got the internet at my grandma's, like in the 90s, we had to like string phone wire across the living room. Something this movie would appreciate, I think.
We actually had... I'm trying to think of what it was. Well, it was one of the first places that my wife and I lived in. We had an office set up that actually, luckily, had a phone line in it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I remember when we first had it, you'd have to unplug the phone and then put this in instead, and just to get on AOL at that point. And then eventually we got a second line in my bedroom at my grandmother's, and so I was able to just have the internet whenever I wanted to, which was, man, what a luxury that was.
Life.
Oh gosh, I was a college student. I was writing a lot of papers. Researching on the internet is not as common as it is now, but I was able to do it. But the new number that I got in that bedroom was one digit off of a golf course
boy.
nearby. So I would get calls at like 5 o'clock in the morning asking when tea time was. And
A friend of mine, I won't name names because I don't want people calling them. When she was growing up, her home phone number was 2800.
okay.
The hospital is 4800. So you
Got
can
it.
imagine the phone calls they.
Those probably aren't people that are as calm as they need to be when they're dialing that number.
So. And now we're introduced to the character Monica Rambeau.
Yeah, we just saw her. And the younger version. So Maria is the mom? Maria's the mom, Monica's the daughter?
I believe that's.
I think
the way it
that's
worked
right.
out.
And this, so many Easter eggs and so many things to set up for what's going to happen later. The Monica Rambeau is the is 80s Captain Marvel. She was in the Avengers back in the 80s comics. So there are just so many Captain Marvels crammed into one movie. It's pretty delightful.
Well, and the other thing about it is the daughter. So maybe she's Maria because the young
The
daughter.
daughter,
is Monica.
the mom is Maria, daughter is Monica.
Okay.
Yep.
And was it at the end of the Marvels that had the cut scene with her and Kelsey Grammer?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if we were spoiling the last movie you're going to be watching.
These movies been out long enough.
You know, I love the fact that I'm with you now to watch this, and then I'm going to be with you on that last one.
I always wonder, what is the timeline? What is
like-
the cutoff for spoilers? But
I think we're good.
if a movie's been out for more than a year, you've had your chance.
That's a really cool post-credit scene too.
It is.
in that one, and
Because
it's
so many people got so excited to see Kelsey Grammer as Beast.
absolutely. And there were so many people that were not interested in seeing the movie because of whatever. And we can talk about that because I think there are legit reasons why a lot of people did not see the Marvels. And it would tell them, like, you need to see it. You care about a property that maybe is referenced in this movie, and you need to see it. I don't want to give it away. But a lot of the reasons why people were telling me that they weren't going to see the Marvels is because they didn't feel they were ready. Like, there was so much homework, especially that the Disney Plus material was giving them, that they just felt like, I don't know if I'll understand what's happening. And I'm like, oh, no, you're fine. Just watch. Oh, yeah, this is kind of a lot. You got to watch the first Captain Marvel. Then you have to watch WandaVision. And then you're going to have to, okay, never mind.
Well, and since you talked about that too, what did you think of WandaVision?
I thought WandaVision was great.
Did you?
Just loved it.
I had a tough time. I watched it all, but it was one of those that I had a tough time getting into.
Okay.
The other one also that I had a tough time getting into, but I did sit through Agatha All Along.
Okay.
And I didn't mind that one either. It was kind of a fun take, but it was...
I thought that one was a little harder to get into for me. I was with WandaVision right at the beginning. In fact, it lost me when it got a little normal. I think what I liked best about WandaVision was just how darn weird it was. Mm-hmm. And I love sitcoms. I love all that stuff. And so the way that it was just doing this thing without explaining to me what was going on, I was kind of delighted by it. And so when we got that episode where we get Darcy and Agent Wu kind of just sort of explaining everything that was happening, I was like, oh, this is kind of disappointing to me, which might have been a moment that you liked better because it was kind of clarifying.
And quite honestly, I think, I don't know how you could do it, but I think a series of Agent Wu and Darcy, like an X-Files for Marvel, would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. Yeah.
I love Darcy.
Well, I think Agent Wu would be a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and is fun in the comics, and to have him doing this
I always call the actor Asian Jim. It's
it's
I
fair.
can't get away from it.
It's fair. I want you to try to make a reference to Jim Halpert in every movie.
I'll see what I can do.
I don't know how that's going to work.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
So, but I think that would be a fun series.
I absolutely. Well, and as you're going through this, let's take notes of all the different series ideas that we can come up
There
with.
you go.
I want a prequel series to this where we also get all sorts of near accidents to Nick Fury's eye. We'll just call it Fury's eye.
Fury's eye.
And we know what really happened, so it never actually results in anything. But here's Fury.
Either that, or maybe you could keep more people enthralled if you called it the Eye of Fury.
Oh, that's good. See, this is what we're doing.
Because then they wouldn't
here.
know if they were watching that or if it was like a kung fu movie.
Yeah, no, that's good. See, this is what we're doing here, and we're just coming up with ideas. We're brainstorming here of things that Marvel needs. Probably what Marvel does not need are more series. It feels like that might be part of the challenge we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Is that just some of those Marvel Plus series felt like homework.
It's not a cat. Reference.
It's good stuff.
It's coming up.
Yeah. No, I'm.
But yeah, I just think that it would be interesting to see that. The one thing too, excuse me, that I really enjoyed about this movie, like I said, is you get a little bit of a backstory. Oh, look at that.
There you go. We did a lot with the DVD ROMs or with CD ROMs. Is that what we've done? Yeah. This movie had some awareness of the time it's looking at, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So again, Lawson references to the original Captain Marvel. Good stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I got nothing more.
I lost my train of thought. It's okay.
You know what we were talking about with the
loading screen just threw me.
It did. It's throwing us all back. I think that those Marvel Plus series, you were talking about ones that you were having trouble with. I really liked WandaVision. I thought by the end it got a little standard Marvel fare stuff, and so I lost a little bit of interest. I thought there was a lot to like in the Agatha Harkness series. It was okay. I think my favorite Marvel Plus series have been the Loki ones. I think those were pretty delightful. And Hawkeye.
I remembered. Hawkeye was great.
Yep.
I'm going to throw another one in there that I really, really liked. And I am very upset that they haven't done more with it. I would love nothing more than to see Moon Knight show up in one of these Avengers movies.
It's got to happen. Moon Knight actually was a West Coast Avenger back in the day, which is weird. Moon Knight does not seem like a good team player.
No.
And he wasn't really, but he was there for a bit.
Because we talked earlier, and now I'll come full circle. We had talked earlier, Mike and I, about movies or characters that made the actor so polarizing that people just kind of turned away. And that's why I said the first one that comes to mind is F. Murray Abraham. Everybody hates him because of Amadeus.
Sure.
I don't know why, because he's a fantastic actor.
Oh, and he's brilliant in that
Yes.
film.
But is there anybody in the MCU that are like, oh my God, I can't believe they did that to that they played this character that well?
Yeah, I think it's interesting in the MCU. A lot of these people are pre-established actors. There aren't a lot. I think that sometimes that can happen with somebody you've never seen anywhere else before, and so you can only see them as that character.
Right.
And I have no idea how people viewed F. Murray Abraham before Amadeus.
Yeah.
That predates me enough.
We're
to know
pretty
that.
well. We pretty well know how they feel about him after it.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to think of like some of the scariest characters in the MCU. I think we already knew enough about that we probably, and in fact, in some cases, saw them as literal heroes. I think that Michael Keaton's Vulture is kind of terrifying. That scene, oh my gosh, the scene in the car when he's dropping him off for the dance.
Yeah.
He might be, as just a normal guy in a lot of ways as he is, he's one of the most terrifying people in that moment.
And
in any of
that's
them.
the whole thing too.
Yeah.
Is it's like that's when you know you've got something. Is when you look at this guy and he's a normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill guy, but he's got a duality to him that you don't see coming.
Sure.
Unlike, we were talking about Daredevil. Unlike Vincent D'Onofrio in Daredevil, you pretty much know who Kingpin is in it.
Absolutely, and boy, he's good.
That's why I'm
so
interested to see this new version, this Born Again.
Sure.
Because with him becoming now mayor of New York City, he's got to have that duality to him. So, and Vincent D'Onofrio is probably one of the reasons I keep going back to Daredevil.
I don't doubt it. We would just mention Hawkeye, and he's great in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much gravitas, so much power. Just one of this we can have. We need to pace you on this of the top fives of things as we go on. But one top five I want you to think about.
I've got 3 days. We can go back.
Oh, that's true. You're gonna be so sleep deprived. You won't even remember what list you put together.
I don't even know what we talked about.
That's fine. So let's do it now. Let's see what it is in a couple of days. The best, I guess, best casting, like the best combination of actor and character in the MCU.
Well, I know what number one is for me,
Okay.
because there's no doubt in my mind that the reason that it worked so well is he is Tony Stark.
Okay.
Personally and on the screen. That's what I told Mike when we were talking about it. I was like, see, all those years of
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. being arrogant, it paid off.
And you know, it's so hard to remember now what he was going through and how he was viewed at that point. That was a risk to cast him in that part.
Definitely was.
The studio was not thrilled with that idea because he was not seen.
No, they had, and I don't know if there's any truth to it.
Yeah.
But there was all kinds of stories about that's who Favreau wanted.
Yeah.
And the studio wasn't going to carry the insurance on it. And I've heard that of all people, Mel Gibson stepped up.
Yeah,
And
I've
paid
heard
the
that.
insurance policy on Robert Downey Jr. to be in that movie.
Yep.
Giving him another chance.
I heard that he was a huge advocate for
Yeah,
Downey at that time.
Everything that I knew was a lie. What? What do I understand now?
John Mark killed Mom, though. Killed him. Because you found out that you were on the wrong side of an unjust war.
No. Your people are terrorists. They kill innocents. I saw the ruins on Torfa.
Ruins I the accused are responsible for. My people lived as refugees on Torfa. Homeless. Ever since we resisted the Olsen and
Kickin' Country 98.3 1067. You forgot Trenty Dave. I think that's the biggest size you can get at Starbucks, if I remember correctly. Hanging out here in the conference room with Dr. Jason Olsen of USU Eastern as we're watching the Marvels, or Captain Marvel right now, in my quest to watch all 33 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or at least the first 33, let's put it that way. 78 hours. This is a lot of fun. If you want to join in and see how it's going, you can always check out Dave and Ryan's movie review page on Facebook and our YouTube channel, and just watch, check in every now from time to time. I've got people that are kind of monitoring the stream. If you want to talk, we can do that too, and just, you know, chat back and forth a little bit while we're doing this. It's leading up to, I have been approved to do a world record for watching movies. 125 hours in a theater type setting of sitting and watching movies. That's 5 days, and that may come in May if I survive this. So it's got a lot going on. I've got, like I said, Dr. Jason Olsen here with me, who is my expert on all things Marvel. And you actually wanted to sit and watch Captain Marvel.
Oh, I love Captain
love
Marvel.
this movie.
Yes, I love this movie. In fact, we have to be on air, and we just learned of Jan Rog's true motives. It's okay, though. I'll allow it.
They'll get it. They'll
Yes.
get it.
Oh, everybody loves Jan Rog
Who
these
doesn't?
days. Yeah.
That's a problem. You know what else everybody loves? The Young Artist Chamber Players. They present a free concert of orchestral music, and that's going to be on March 13th from 7 to 8:30 at Mont Harmon. Now, this concert is free to attend, and everyone is welcome. This is a Salt Lake-based youth chamber orchestra, and they are sure to impress. Take the whole family out for a great night of entertainment. And, you know, until then, just stay in, and maybe you could even follow along at home and watch all these movies. It's possible. It's very possible. We're going to get back at it. I have got Sam Hunt coming up on Kickin' Country.
I'm sure the average listener was really into my Jan Rog reference.
No, that's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
You do you.
I
the whole
appreciate
point
that.
of it.
I appreciate that.
Oh, stand up, Dave.
Okay.
So, I thought of something while we were talking there.
Okay.
I need to get a paper and write this stuff down while I'm thinking of
Oh.
it because it just goes.
And that's why
But we were talking top 5.
Oh yes, the top 5 casting.
Top 5 casting.
Okay.
And so,
You gave me one. Can I give you one?
yep.
Okay. Now this maybe is a bit of a cheat because this predates the MCU, but this character is in the MCU, so I think it's okay. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is unbelievable.
Fantastic in it, yes.
I mean, there are very few embodiments of comic characters that work as well as that. He's unbelievable.
I've just got a text from Ben that works over in the athletics department.
Oh, sure.
He said he loves F. Murray Abraham. Well, that's on you, Ben. That's not on us. But yeah, J.K. Simmons is fantastic. I don't think you could find anybody better to play him.
And they didn't even try.
No.
Because, you know, when it came to bringing that character back for a moment in the MCU Spider-Man, like, just get him again.
Just get him again. It
Yeah.
works.
I mean, there was no... I mean, that's a testament to how good he plays that part. I can't imagine there was any even thought of a surge.
Okay, so, you know, one of them that I want to discuss that might be kind of a... And I don't blame him for it.
Okay.
I'm not saying that he's not a great actor. I'm saying that it was the way that the character was written, if that makes sense. But Andrew Garfield's turn as Peter Parker.
Okay.
He had that edgy, snot-nosed teen, you know, smart aleck about him.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But that's the way the character was written.
I've had a lot of discussions with my family, with my students, about the best Peter Parker. And one thing that I love about the Spider-Man, we've got 3 Peter Parkers in film. There's a Gen X Peter Parker, a Millennial Peter Parker, and a Gen Z Peter Parker.
Yes.
I think that's really interesting. And we get to see all 3 of them at once. I think in some ways, Andrew Garfield might be my favorite Peter Parker, but his movies are not good. And so I think that ends up being kind of a detriment to what he's doing. I think that when we get to see him in No Way Home, he's great. And they lean on him a lot because he's charismatic. I think he does a great job with that character. That's a character who has grown since we saw him in Amazing 1 and 2.
Well, not only that, I mean, I think the moment that you're talking about and alluding to is when he saves MJ. He had to do that.
It's so beautiful.
And
it's so great.
It's unbelievable. So
Chills, man.
I guess the question is that a waste of Andrew Garfield's talent? The first 2 movies.
No. Those 2 movies are cynical just as it is. Because they needed to make those movies to maintain the rights. And that's why the first Amazing Spider-Man was made. I didn't love it. Part of what I didn't love is we went from Peter Parker just being a guy who happened to be bit by a spider to part of some larger mission, trying to Harry Potterize the whole thing. And I didn't love that. But what I do love in those movies, maybe the only thing besides just him, is the Emma Stone. There's actual chemistry.
Yes.
I don't think there's any other place where we really get true chemistry with Spider-Man.
Because that's what I was going to say. I think Dunst and Maguire was like a forced chemistry.
Boy, it's rough.
It was a forced experiment that didn't work. Does that make sense?
No, 100%.
I think that it'll be interesting to see what the turn is now
Yeah.
with the Tom Holland universe, because now nobody knows who he is.
Yeah. It should be interesting. Does she? Would Captain Marvel know?
Well,
She's not on Earth. She's
That's
not
what
on
they
Earth.
said. There was that, and the other
Yeah.
one that may know still is Wong.
Okay.
Wong may know still.
Okay. Because Captain Marvel would not have been on Earth when this happened, so it's possible that she would have some sense of it. Although things look bleak at this point. Oh, she's a Skrull. What a tricky thing going on here. And
Should have seen that one coming, actually.
well, I did.
Let's be honest.
Yeah,
No, not you, but I'm saying Jude Law.
Sure.
Just saw it coming.
Well, you know,
He did train her after all.
he did, but he's not the nicest guy. Sometimes villainy blinds you from the obvious. So I think Andrew Garfield is quite good, but I'm with you. I think those movies are pretty dreadful, frankly.
And another, you know what? Reese Ifans. Such a great guy.
Yeah.
Great actor.
That's another potential waste? Is that
And
how
I'm
you
gonna
look at it?
I'm gonna sidestep for just a second, because knowing who you are and knowing what you do for a living, have you ever seen the movie Anonymous,
I don't think I have, actually.
where he plays a but the basis of the story of Anonymous is he plays Shakespeare.
Oh,
But-
okay.
But it's alluded to that someone else has written everything for him.
Sure. I mean, I think I've heard of this
And I
movie.
think
I
there's
have not
even
seen
a
it.
theory that
Oh, there is a
is
theory.
based on that.
There
That
is
he
a
didn't
theory.
really write
Sure.
part of any of the stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he plays Shakespeare in it.
Oh, okay. I think I have heard of this movie.
And
I
that
have
was
not
like
seen
one
it.
of the first times I remember seeing him in anything. Well, and then the replacements. So.
Sure. I got it right there. I wrote it down
Okay.
to look for it. And we're very much in a Shakespeare kick in my household because my whole family, and me included, are going to be starring in the USU Eastern
right.
production of Romeo and Juliet.
That's
Yes.
coming up.
And we are deep in rehearsals. It's going to be spring break for USU Eastern starting next week. So we aren't going to be rehearsing. So it's going to be a weird thing. We got to make sure we don't forget everything we've spent
Don't
the
let it
last several
slide
weeks
now, yeah.
learning. But yeah, so we've been thinking a lot about Shakespeare, and mostly in the form of Romeo and Juliet, which might not be the best thing to be constantly thinking
No,
about
probably not.
for a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old, as my kids are. But you know, they're deep in it, so they're going to be okay.
There's that cat again.
Look at the trust that Nick Fury
Right.
has for that cat.
I don't know.
That would be handy. you
Wouldn't
know?
it though?
Yeah.
It's like the Power Glove 2.0.
Maybe that's the future of things. You know,
Maybe.
maybe we'll look at this in 10 years and think, oh, look how quaint it was when they tried to imagine what our cool hand pod would be. Our hand phone.
Well, what a comedian talked about that. He goes, "How are we going to, complain to the next generation?"
It's fair. How are we going to talk about things we saw as injustices in films?
Right.
We got to have new means of getting this stuff out there. But I mean, when you look back at old episodes of Star Trek Next Gen, they have clearly iPads that they're
Yes.
working with, even if they're not quite there. So maybe Captain Marvel's wrist thing, hologram thing, maybe that's possible.
I bet it's out there.
Oh, I bet it is. I bet there's a bunch of people that have that. We just don't get it.
Mm-hmm. We're not one of those people. This is really the first time, well, once again, chronologically, that ties this movie to Captain America.
With the Tesseract?
Yeah.
The Cosmic Cube,
Yeah.
as I would have called it. Yeah, so 2 movies chronologically in. You got two moments for the Cosmic Cube.
Happy Days lunchbox.
You can't make a 90s movie without some 80s references.
That's right.
Evidently.
Metal. Gotta have the
I guess
metal
70. What do you
lunchbox,
call
too.
that? I mean, Happy
That
Days was
late
on for
70s, wasn't it?
that was on for so long.
It was.
Yeah, but I guess we should call it 70s. But
Yeah.
about the 50s.
It's one of those shows too that the amount of spin-offs that came out of that show, people don't even realize.
That's
you had
kind of
Laverne and
amazing.
Shirley, Mork and Mindy was actually a spin-off of
That's-
Happy Days.
That's true.
And who can forget Joni Loves Chachi?
I couldn't.
It was that bad. It just sticks there. You
I don't.
can't get it out
One
your
of those
mind.
things you just know is bad. I've never seen an episode of
See?
that
There
I
you
would have
go.
any awareness of.
Scott
But
Baio and Aaron Moran. Oh, come on.
I mean, just with that star power, how could that fail?
How could it fail? Would take him many, many more years to become Charles in Charge.
Yeah, it's true. Well, he had to love Joni first.
He had to love
To
Joni
really
first,
get
and
into
then,
charge,
Then
yeah.
he knew what it was like to be in charge.
Okay, so now we've gone from lots of '90s video games. Now we got '80s ones.
He got foosball too, so.
Well, and that's timeless. There's no era that doesn't love foosball.
It's very true.
Yeah. So much empathy can come across from him. I mean, it's amazing when you have actors who could get that across, like through so much makeup and CGI.
Well, you've got to humanize.
Yeah, it's part of why this movie works. I think there's a lot of reasons why this movie works, but I think that's one of them. the real emotional weight that's coming from his performance. I think she's good too. I know a lot of people have kind of criticized her for this role of kind of being emotionally blank, but this is a character that has literally no idea who she is
Well, that's
and
what I
what's
was gonna
going
say.
on.
The reasoning behind that is she's trying to find herself.
Yeah, and I think she's really quite good. I've always wondered, you know, these sort of alternate castings that you could have had for some of these types of roles and these people, and you can talk about that with Downey, with the other people that were potentially considered for Iron Man. I mean, you always hear that Tom Cruise was interested in
They
it.
even throw Tom Cruise out there as he's going to show up in as a variant. He's going to show up.
Who knows? But I think Sam Rockwell was considered for the Tony Stark. Yeah.
You know, the one thing that always frustrates me too, and I love Sam Rockwell,
I do too.
is the Terrence Howard, Don Cheadle switch and,
Sure.
and everything that went on there. And I don't know. This is what I've heard. And maybe you've heard something differently. I heard that when they did the first Iron Man movie, they signed Terrence Howard first.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
He was the first one, so that made everybody else's pot smaller.
Yep.
And then it became a success, and he didn't want to renegotiate. So we're going to just go out and get Don Cheadle.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've heard.
And it's not very often that recasting works, but was it really that major of a character in the first one that you couldn't get away with it?
I like Don Cheadle. I think Don Cheadle's a great actor. I always had a harder time with the relationship with Stark for Cheadle's character than for Howard's.
Yeah.
Howard's Rhodey and Downey Stark felt like there was some sort of friend chemistry there that I felt like was always a little lacking with Cheadle's Rhodey. They're very different actors, the two of them.
They are.
And you know, Rhodey is a military guy, so I think from that perspective, Cheadle's version makes more sense. Because I don't know if Terrence Howard's felt as much that, but Terrence Howard is cool in a way that I don't think that Cheadle has put into that character. I'm not saying Cheadle's not cool. Cheadle's very, very cool. But I think there's a coolness that Howard had in that part, which I thought was kind of interesting. I would have liked to have seen where they would have taken it, or where he would have taken it. But yeah, I've heard all of the issue with pay, and it makes sense. And it's not like you had to. I mean, you got Cheadle.
Yeah.
It's not a
only
bad
that, though,
backup plan.
I mean, while we're on that movie, let's talk about the fact that you've got Gwyneth Paltrow in the movie that can't even remember any of the Marvel movies she's been in.
I mean, I kind of defend her for that. It's like, she just has it. They probably just call them in to film something, and you might not, when it's just like
Well,
a 2-minute scene. I don't know if I'm going to be.
I was in that movie?
Yeah.
You were in that movie.
I mean, it's not showing the level of passion that maybe we're looking for
No, but
our
maybe it
actors.
might be the level of passion that we were expecting from Gwyneth Paltrow.
It might be fair. It might be fair.
So,
But she, I think the casting is good in that first one. I think Cheadle obviously is a fine replacement, and it works just fine. But it is, there's Flerken. See, I've got 4 cats at home.
are any of them named Flerken?
None of them are named Flerken, but I wonder if they are Flerken. They're little monsters sometimes. And if you're wondering
Cats
about,
at their core are.
I think so. I think that's why this is also relatable to have this potentially monstrous cat. Load the Flerken, which, I think there's a screenwriter wrote that line.
I was going to say,
and I love that.
There is a missed T-shirt opportunity.
No, I have 4 cats, and if you're wondering, that's too many. That's too many cats. I like my cats, love my cats. If they're watching this live feed, I love my
You're
cats.
live on YouTube right
Well,
now.
they're
You should be
Flerken.
watching.
They're Flerken. They might be.
We had in the last one, we had one of Mike's kids was watching,
Ah,
so we had to tell him to go to school. So he says, "Listen to mom, go to school."
that's funny.
I says, "Yeah, you don't want to have to watch movies all day. Just go to school."
I mean, I don't know. You've already stated your case on Annette Bening. I think she's got a menace here with that smile at this point. I think there's something about her as the Supreme Intelligence that's pretty darn creepy. I mean, she's not in this movie a lot, but she's playing really vital roles in those small parts, and I don't hate it. But I've established I like this one.
was a mistake. That was definitely not a throwaway line.
So I want you to pay attention to this scene.
Okay.
Because when you're watching Dark World or whatever movie is getting you down, I just want you to think about what Carol went through
Think
and how
about
she
the
kept
inspiration.
getting up. Is that McKenna Grace? I think McKenna Grace is young Carol, Ghostbusters, and
Yeah, I never paid attention to that.
yeah. Well, we wouldn't have known who she was probably the last time I watched this.
She was actually at Comic-Con
She was.
last year.
So was I.
Fan X, oops. We went up there for one day. Mike is a big Fan X guy.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna hopefully be doing it again this year, so you'll have to come and if
This
you
is
need
gonna
me
be
to
the last one on the radio, so
Okay.
this is the end of my show.
got it.
That's the new one from Kane Brown. I got to be honest, I like that song. I like the story behind it. So it's called Backseat Driver. Hey, I am getting ready to step on out of here. We've got Ro coming in at 11. She'll take you through until 3 o'clock when Jordan takes over. Don't forget Elena Smith and Drew Baldridge tonight on Backstage Country. And if you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning and wondering what's going on and you're just looking for something to do, head on over to Dave and Ryan's Movie Review on YouTube or Dave and Ryan's Movie Review on Facebook as I am making my way through the first 33 movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And right now we're watching Captain Marvel. Almost to the first Iron Man. It's coming up right after this one. I've had Dr. Jason Olsen from USU Eastern with me. I'm going to let him sign off too because once this movie's over, he'll be back for later on in the show and watch and talking movies. But we're going to let him once this movie's over, we'll let him kind of go away for a little while. Not that you have to if you don't want to.
Well, I don't know many things that I'd rather do than sit here and watch these Marvel movies with you.
See? I knew I could find more people that would do this. It's not as crazy as it seems, trust me.
I will be sleeping this weekend, though.
I might not. So here's the other thing. This is all leading up to a big event that's hopefully going to come up this year, and we're calling it, well, I've been approved to go for a world record, a Guinness World Record of watching movies in a theater setting, 125 hours. Got to make it through this one first. So if I can do that, then we'll talk about that one, okay? It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you this morning. We're going to do it again tomorrow morning. I'll be live here in the conference room. We will have the countdown. We're going to give stuff away for the birthday club. It's going to be a lot of fun, so make sure you tune in for that. And once again, check us out on YouTube and Facebook, Dave and Ryan's Movie Review. Like and subscribe. But I think I'm going to let you go. We're going to sneak on out of here. I got Luke Combs coming up. We're jumping into that 11 o'clock hour for the whole new cast of characters that are on their way as well. So you take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow morning. That part's done.
Okay. That feel better? Is there a burden lifted on that?
There is a little bit.
Okay, good. I didn't know you'd be double dutying in this way. So we just saw Goose in action.
Mm-hmm. We saw the flirkin.
It's good stuff.
He's not a cat.
He does not seem to be a cat in the way we think of cats. And I think we're getting a big Goose moment here in a second.
Oh, definitely.
There we go.
There it is. Now,
Yeah.
one of the things that was going on around this time too, because we're not talking
It's great.
in chronological order, we're actually talking in the order that the timeline is as far as when this movie came out.
Sure.
And you still have it today. A lot of people have issues with female superheroes.
Yes, they do.
Okay, that's why I think this scene is pretty poignant,
I think this is
especially
great.
with the music.
Yep.
You can put No Doubt behind anything, and I'll listen to it, and I'll watch it too.
Yeah.
So to throw the song "Just a Girl"
Yep.
in here while she's fighting this guy is pretty legendary as far as
It's
I'm
great.
concerned.
It's a great song. It's hitting the 90s motifs that we want to hit. It's giving empowerment. And it's some great sequences too. I mean, this is some of the fighting scenes in this movie are really top tier.
They are.
Honestly, I kind of forgot how good they were until I'm watching it with you now. I mean, it rivals some of the best like close combat stuff that Marvel does. I think without question, I would say Shang-Chi is the top of that. But I think this is really quite good. And Captain America obviously has some good fight scenes too in Winter Soldier specifically. But there's a lot of good stuff here. And yeah, the song is great.
There are two movies that I'm really looking forward to revisiting in this one.
Uh-huh.
And you just brought up one of them. Shang-Chi is quietly one of my favorites.
I agree.
I think it's a great.
I've
great
only seen
film.
it once.
I am looking forward to making the decision of whether the Eternals is as bad as I thought.
Okay. What time of day are you watching the Eternals? Do you know that off the top?
I've got my schedule right here. But, you know,
I love this moment of Fury just holding the cat,
Yeah.
squeezing it to do something.
Come on.
I think I've done that with my cats
All right.
before. Come on, cat.
So the Eternals is going to be Saturday at 5:30.
Okay.
And my wife's coming in for that one.
Okay,
She
good.
likes that movie.
So do you have any movies that you still do not have any co-watchers on?
Oh, yeah, I do have a few.
Okay.
Because we had to cancel the Zoom meeting, sadly.
Yeah, so
But-
I'm not going to be able to see that one.
But
with you. Is that what's going to happen?
Winter Soldier is one of them.
Oh, somebody get it's my favorite movie of the whole
but
thing.
I've told you about the story about my wife and Winter Soldier, right?
I
You
think
give her
so,
a hard
but-
time about it. Jordan has even gotten in on this one.
Yeah, I think
And
you
every
have.
now and then he'll just pop off and send her a text and say, "I can't believe you've never seen the Winter Soldier." But that is one. We actually have on our YouTube channel. We have a segment that we call Redemption.
Yes, it's a good segment. I've seen
And
it.
we're actually going to watch. Ryan's going to come in, and we're going to do a redemption while we're watching Iron Man 2.
Okay.
Because that by far is probably the weakest of the Iron Man movies. 3 was okay, wasn't fantastic.
I think I like 2 better than you do, it sounds like. And I feel if I remember correctly, Ryan was very anti-Mickey Rourke. Was that?
Yes.
Yeah. And I kind of enjoy Rourke in it because it's so completely ridiculous.
Ben just volunteered. He's coming in for Winter Soldier.
Okay, good. I'm glad you got that covered. That's a tough reach for me.
My daughter is going to come and watch Iron Man 3
Okay.
with me.
Good.
So we've got that. So then after that, the next one is, like I said, Thor Dark World. And I think I'm going to spend the entire movie on that treadmill.
Gosh, I worry about you.
I don't know why that movie fell so short.
Well,
But I have a suspicion, and I don't want to say it, but I'm going to anyway. I think that people didn't like it because they almost made it more of a love story than a Thor movie.
I don't think that's why I didn't like it.
Yeah.
My kids and I have been watching them in not chronological order, but in order of release. And we got to that one. My kids liked it better than I did. But when I was watching it, I think, we talked about the villain problem in some of these. That the villain just isn't as interesting as the hero is or as you want it to be. And we can talk about that being a bit of an issue here with our pal Jan-Rog, as maybe not being as compelling as we want. But I think he's fine because this movie is not about him. It's about Carol. It's about her interactions with Nick, about her interactions with the Rambos, with the Skrulls. He's way down the list of what's important. And I think in Dark World, I don't even remember. It's Chris Eccleston,
Yeah, Chris
who's
Eccleston.
wonderful,
Okay.
but boy, it's a rough character that he plays. I just
Dark
have
Elves, man.
it's Dark Elves, but I have no idea what the Dark Elves are doing. I don't know what they care about. I don't know what's happening. The stuff with Jane, it's okay, but it's rough. It's a rough movie,
Yeah,
but you're
it
gonna
is.
be fine because
Like I said, I'll hang out.
Carol endured.
That's right.
Yeah, those late night ones are going to be kind of hard for me to get to. So I'm sorry the Zoom doesn't work, but
that's
I'll be out
okay.
here.
But the other thing too is the other one that I'm kind of concerned with, and you brought the character up, and I wanted to touch base and talk about that. Is I will be flying solo for Wakanda Forever,
Okay.
and that might be a waste of a Marvel character. Submariner. I think.
Oh, the Submariner. Okay, I was wondering which way we were
waited
going.
and waited for them to
We
get
did.
Submariner in a movie, and then
Yeah.
this is what you give me.
if this is all we get of Namor, I think that's a problem. But we're getting the Fantastic Four, and Namor and the Fantastic Four very, very intertwined. I don't know if that's the route that they would take. I didn't mind the character. That whole movie was the degree of difficulty it must have been to make that movie and to make that movie work is kind of extraordinary.
Yep.
And so I don't love that movie, but you have to give it every benefit of the doubt because it's just so difficult what they had to do. And are they going to likely recast T'Challa at some point? So. Is that the plan? I think it was probably the right move to not do it.
I would think that maybe, because when did Wakanda Forever come out?
I don't know.
I can't remember, but anyway.
A couple years ago.
I would think that maybe the safe thing to do, because we probably won't see him again until Doomsday or Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Okay. The safe thing to do is it's not necessarily recasting if you have his child take the mantle.
You can do that. I mean, we've got this multiverse thing, and I don't want you to use, not you personally, but don't use the multiverse like it's too much of a crutch to just get away with everything you want. That's clearly what they're doing with the Fantastic Four. But the Fantastic Four debuting some 17 years into the MCU doesn't make any sense. I mean, the MCU or the Fantastic Four are the first family. This is what they are. They're the ones who established this stuff. So I think bringing them out of another timeline is logical. The casting seems great for FF. I know you guys talked about it very briefly during First Avenger, but I'm hoping that it works.
I do too.
Yeah.
Because there's not one person in that movie that's cast in that movie that I don't like.
Yeah.
Julia Garner, even as Silver Surfer, I'm very excited to see her take on that.
I think that's going to be really cool.
Pedro Pascal, I'm very excited for.
Love it.
Vanessa Kirby has quietly become one of my favorite actresses out there right now.
Sure.
Through the Mission Impossible series.
She's so good in
really
those.
good in it.
Yeah, and she does so many cool actiony things in there that I think that this is a character that deserves somebody who can really bring it, and I feel really good about her in that part. Not anything against the other actresses who played it, but it feels we're in the big leagues now.
Yes.
And so.
Well, because it's really, let's be honest, this is the first one that Marvel has had complete control over.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the first Fantastic Four with Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis. And
well, it's funny you call
I
that.
would try and pronounce the guy's name, but I know I would kill Ian Gruffudd or.
You know what? I know who you're talking about. So we'll leave it at that. You got that. You nailed that one.
On top of everything else, too. I mean, because my wife and I were huge Nip Tuck fans, and when they cast Julian McMahon in that movie, over the moon for it.
Yeah, loved it. And I didn't love either of those movies, but boy, then you see the other Fantastic Four, and it's like, oh, those were
Teller didn't work.
Those were really good. Nothing worked. I mean,
you had Miles Teller. You had was it Kate Mara?
Yeah, it was Kate Mara. I was blanking on the name, and
Michael B. Jordan, and I can't remember who played the Thing.
I don't remember who played the Thing. Let us know if you're watching. But the actual first Fantastic Four movie was it Roger Corman?
Yes.
The total B thing. And I have a friend who I just like to brag about that every now and then, Dave. That I do have a friend.
Okay, that's cool.
His name is Michael. Michael Harris. He's the librarian at USU Eastern, and he and I are actually starting a podcast about '90s comics that I'll tell you more about when we get more involved in it. Some later movie when we're really struggling for things to talk about. I can talk more about this. Michael's main comic interest is the Fantastic Four. When I first met him, it was over Zoom, but I could see all his Fantastic Four comics in the background, and we had to have a long conversation about this. And he kind of says that the movie that maybe got it the closest for him of those so far, that family aspect of the Fantastic Four, was that Roger Corman B movie. Because it made the effort more than the other ones did.
Okay. The actor's name was Jamie Bell.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
He was in Jumper. He was in Snowpiercer.
That's true.
King Kong. But that was the actor that played Ben Grimm in that one.
Okay. Well, since I'm not going to be able to do Winter Soldier, I hope there's something else that I'll be able to make it up with. I've been having a little transportation issues getting here and back, but there's nowhere else I want to be.
Anytime
This
you want
is great.
Look
Okay.
you've got the schedule.
I
Anytime
do.
you want to come in, come in. You're more than welcome.
Yeah, we were talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp, and maybe we can talk about that. I don't know who you got for that one, but we can discuss it. But it feels like we're big enough in here for a couple people to fit in, right?
Yeah. Well, I've got times when I've got 3 people in here.
Okay. Well,
So, Ant-Man and the Wasp is 7:30 in the morning on Saturday.
oof, that might be tricky actually. I'm kind of at the mercy of my wife's schedule as well as my own. But we'll be in touch. We'll figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah. Anything you see on there, it's updated. So anything that on the list that I sent you, if there's not somebody there and you want to come in, just shoot me a text. Let me know
Cool.
you're coming, and we'll make it happen.
All right, sounds good.
No worries whatsoever.
Because I just don't feel like you're going to be able to really do this without me as much as possible.
That's
You
the
know-
attitude I want.
Yeah,
And,
you know-
I was thinking about the fact that we're talking about multiverses and stuff.
Uh-huh.
In a multiverse, I've already done this.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and I told you this over text, but my son and I watched one of your promo videos for this, and he was excited because you mentioned me. So thank you for that shout out.
Absolutely.
And he told me a little bit later, like a good half hour later, he's like, I really hope he does it. And I'm like, who? Like, Dave. I think he can do it.
Oh,
and I hope
there
he.
it went. It's just a scratch. He knows.
He knows. That's why they're afraid of the Flurkin.
But I've even had I've got a niece that lives in Kansas that sent me and my wife a text the other day, and they're cheering for me across the distance. So
Yeah. So we're allowed now to talk about your potential future
absolutely,
endeavors.
that's the whole point.
So what would be the next thing? I mean, if you're going to break this record, that somebody
The world record.
Yeah, the world
is
record.
125 hours. Is
Okay.
What I've said.
So is this just? I mean, are you going to have like a specific
This is a
universe?
build-up. If I can't do this, then
I mean,
you know what I mean.
Are you just going to watch the Snyder cut?
No.
Does that cover 125 hours of
No,
film?
I'm not quite 100% sure what I'm going to be watching, to be honest.
I was wondering this too. I mean, obviously you're already doing this. You don't want to go through the MCU again. But if you added the Disney Plus stuff, those are series. Does that not count?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
And give me just a second. We'll talk more about.
Please.
So, what my plan is like I said, in a theater experience. Now, a theater, their definition of a theater is very loose.
Okay.
Okay, it's a projection and a screen.
Got it.
So what my plan is, and I've mentioned and talked to Lane Miller about this,
Okay.
I want to use the Price Auditorium
Okay.
during the day.
Okay.
Then at night, I want to move it out to the Peace Gardens.
Oh.
So anybody that wants to come.
Oh, I love this.
And that's the thing about the world record too, is if people want to come and be a part of it,
Okay.
they can.
All right.
They have to be allowed to do that. So we move in, and then we move outside in the evening hours.
Sure.
I don't know if we could make that happen, but I think it would be really cool to find a way to project it on the side of the library.
You're talking to the right person. I'm also the chair of the library board.
Okay.
And, you know,
but I'm
I
just
have.
worried about projections and stuff like that. But anyway.
Yeah. Oh, we'll make sure.
Do that, and that way we could even have like food trucks come out.
Oh, that'd be great.
And things like
Sure.
that. So that's the plan moving forward if I survive this one.
Okay. We need one more big time 90s reference here.
Uh-huh. A pager.
When did you, I'm assuming you had a pager at some
I
point.
never had a pager.
You never had? I did.
Never.
I did at one point.
No.
And I don't know why I had one. My mom gave me one. I guess she did not like not being able to get in touch with me
Yeah.
when I was in
No.
my teens or early 20s.
Honestly, I'll tell you what, I've had, and sadly, I've had the same phone number since then.
Oh, wow.
I got my first cell phone when my wife was pregnant with our first child, and
Okay.
she'll be 24.
Okay. You should have answered that faster, Dave,
Well,
but that's
there's a
okay. It's
problem with
okay.
that. There's a
No,
problem with that. Because my daughter was born, my oldest
uh-huh.
was born on April 24th, 2001.
Okay.
My youngest was born April 23rd, 2002.
Wow.
So that's why whenever I go like pick up a prescription, I'm like, oh, you're gonna make me tell you what her birthday is.
That's fair. My two kids have different seasons, one in October, one in June, and I still get tripped up. And I always worry when I'm going to pick up like my daughter's medication. It's like, it sounds like I'm making this up, but I'm not.
Like, why do you have to ask me this?
I know. No, this hesitation, like October ... It's like, no, I'm legit. I promise.
Well, as long as you don't look at her and say, "Is it October?" But yeah, and now thankfully they know me at the pharmacy, so I'm good.
Yeah.
They understand where it's coming from.
Sure. Oh, this guy doesn't remember anything.
He
It's
doesn't
fine.
remember anything.
So
But yeah, that was when the first time I got a cell phone. So I've had the same cell phone number for 24 years.
Nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't have any idea where my first cell phone.
You want to have your mind blown even more? My
Blow it.
first email address, I still have it.
Oh, wow.
It was a joint account that me and my wife had.
Okay.
It's at msn.com.
Okay. I have a Hotmail account that I set up.
My wife does.
Yeah. I think my first was an AOL. This movie would be proud of me since it made the
I
AOL
have a
references.
Yahoo one that I don't use anymore.
I have a Yahoo that I don't use either, but I still have a Hotmail that I mostly is just random ads. Just the one that I'll use to sign up for things. Okay. Well, look at the eye.
Protector Initiative doesn't sound good. I don't like the sounds of that.
I don't know. Let's give it some time.
Yeah.
Dave. I think we'll
Sleep on it. Not within the next 3 or 4 days, but
again, somebody put together a box of eyeballs for that. That's some good work going on in this movie.
where's Doge when you need him? What are you doing, huh?
That would have gotten
together these different eyeballs.
That would have gotten mentioned in that speech this week. They've got boxes of eyeballs.
And somebody's organizing them.
Yeah.
Paying that guy $100,000 a year. But yeah, I miss Coulson in the later movies.
I do too.
I really do.
But his death is really important. My feeling on character deaths, as long, if they matter, you can do whatever.
The rest is the story.
Yeah, and there's really nothing more you could have done. They needed something to happen in order to motivate Cap and Iron Man to work together.
Yep.
And the fact we get that little hint that Fury just not set it up, but he planted the trading cards on him to get Cap's sympathy even more. It's pretty dark. Not that he set up Coulson. I'm not making that conspiracy theory, but
I don't think I've ever heard that one. But if you want to start it,
no.
There's a reference for you.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, do it, Fury. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think Protector Initiative works.
No.
Let's go with.
Pre-Avengers, right?
He's not the fastest typer, old Nick
He's
Fury.
only got one eye. Take it easy on him.
And we don't even see what he wrote. I think it's got to be some very 90s reference, the Blockbuster Initiative.
Like I said, the Pre-Vengers. They want to stop it before
Pre-Vengers
it starts,
are
right?
good. Yeah.
That's what we are.
We got the Revengers later. That gets mentioned. All right. So
or the Ravagers.
You are, the Ravagers is good stuff. You're 2 movies in.
2 movies in.
Yeah. I think we can say, no hesitation. If Jordan asks about the smell, I still will stand
good.
by it. It's still okay.
Yeah. Now, my wife will come down later. Maybe she'll bring a candle or something.
Okay.
I did buy, Febreze. I've got.
Well, I was wondering.
Okay.
I don't want to lift the veil too much. I don't want to get too behind the scenes. But how are you working on these things? Do you have like a deodorant stick somewhere?
I've got
Okay.
The great thing too that I did not take part of in the last time we were here, and I don't know if I've given you any basis or background on the building that we're in. It used to be a house.
Okay. It looks like it's in a weird spot.
This actually used to be the garage.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
So anyway, we do have a restroom here that has a shower in it.
Oh, wow.
So I can go. I told him, I says, even if I just go in during my 10-minute break and shove my head under a cold water shower,
you can do that.
That'll wake me up.
So one thing I love doing at the end of movies is like going into like MVP, best scene, all those things.
Okay.
I think you should take that on. Like actor who's the MVP. I feel like I already know your answer for this.
The actor who's the MVP of this one?
Yeah.
Who makes the movie work without it really working? Do we have to take Carol Danvers out though? Right?
I guess you do. I mean, I think there are sometimes like the next movie you're about to watch, it has to be Downey. I mean, because it doesn't work. And I know he's the main character. I know all that. But I feel like I think you can say it if it's a case in which the movie like has I always like to think of that replacement level theory in baseball. Like if you replace the superstar with like a replacement level player, how much does the team fall off? Like how much does this movie fall off if Carol is played by somebody else? I mean, and not somebody terrible, but just somebody okay. Does it matter that much? What happens if, Talos is not played by Mendelsohn? I was thinking, I have no idea what
I couldn't
the
remember
secret
what it
scene
was either.
Well, I just kept thinking about when we were.
Doesn't she show up in this?
Yes, because
That's
we're
Rose Fury.
because
I'm flowing back now.
we're post Infinity War. There's Rhodes.
We got Banner.
Yeah. See, these guys didn't know what movie they were filming for.
No,
Come on.
just show up.
If you ask Chris Evans if he was in Captain Marvel, he's not going to say yes.
I thought that's what's on the other end of that thing.
Boom. Didn't remember that one.
I would say MVP in this one. I gotta go with Mendelsohn. I mean, because as I said, he adds just a human character to the Skrulls. He really does. So I would say that is probably one of my favorite performances in this movie.
I'm going to take Jackson.
Yeah.
That's easy. That's low-hanging fruit. But Sam Jackson's really fun here. He's getting to do different things with this character that we don't get to see anywhere else. Because he can see both
By
eyes.
his periphery.
Yeah, I mean, and so it just opens him up.
He doesn't have to turn.
No. I mean, I think there are times in which the patch is on a different eye in some of these movies anyway. But we don't worry about that.
No.
That's not
Continuity.
It's fine.
What's that?
It's okay. And then what's the best scene in this? Is it,
You know what? I'm going to go back to that fight scene.
I think that's the right.
I'm just a girl fight scene.
I think that's the right
really
answer.
Liked it.
I think that's the right answer. I really like the moment when we see Goose Burkle out there.
Be flirking.
Flirkin, that's it. The first time and the second time. I think that's a lot of fun. Though I like the scene on the train too. I think the scene on the train is really, really good also. There's a lot to offer here.
And that's the great thing about going back and watching these movies is you forget part of it and it comes back to you and you're like, oh yeah, that happened in this one.
And I think with this movie, you have a couple of things that kind of work against it. One of them is the timing. That this is in that, I think there's two movies that come out in between Infinity War and Endgame. And we didn't really care about those that much. And because Ant-Man and the Wasp is the other one. Mm-hmm. And Ant-Man and the Wasp plays it really, really fast and loose and goofy, and that kind of helps that movie.
That's the theme of those movies.
It is, but even more so in that one. The tone is really, really silly, and this one gets to do the backstory period piece, so it doesn't have as much relevancy. But I think it takes away, and I think there was also all the controversy that people had with her character, with her depiction, just the idea of a female hero. I think there were some things that came up through that maybe gave the movie like less of a profile than it probably should.
Well, and sadly, you're not going to get away from that.
No.
And that's the
no. That's just part of where we are. When Doctor Who had a woman play the Doctor, people were assuming that was never going to be any good because, and maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It was okay at times, but that was it. It's like I will never watch this again because you cast a woman in this role, and that's all silly because there are amazing things that we can do, and I think this movie proves it. I think this movie works really quite well for what it's trying to do.
It does.
I think you have the concerns. Is she too powerful? We kind of talked about that with the Endgame. Shouldn't she have a more prominent spot? She just kind of comes in when they need somebody super powerful to take care of something in Endgame, and that's fair. But I think Brie Larson's great. I think she does a good job here, and I enjoyed it.
But the thing about this movie is you can't really answer that question yet.
That's
you
true.
You don't know what she's capable of.
That's true.
So she may
Mark
very
Grunwald
well
gets the special thanks there. There he is.
There you go.
Okay.
But
Just
you
whenever my guy
may-
gets shouted out, I gotta
Absolutely.
interrupt you.
When you don't know the full call options. What she can do.
Yeah,
We don't know
it's true.
yet what she's capable of.
I don't even know if we do now, really.
No, I don't
mean,
think we
I don't think there's ever been a point in
We
which.
saw her fly through a spaceship in this one.
Yes.
She did it in Endgame.
Yes.
So we know that she's capable of that.
I think that just overall, they haven't really given us her full power set.
Well, and the other part of that too, and that's something interesting to look at as well, is do the people of planet Earth view her as this, but do people in the cosmic realm deal her as somebody to not be trifled with?
I love this question. I do, because I always love to think about what did just regular old Jason Dave living in this world, what do we think of these people? I mean, and I always am interested in this. And do we see her as like the most powerful? Are we even really aware of her?
Because in Endgame,
Yeah,
when everything stops and the guns move, it's because of her.
sure. But
It's like the people that are on that ship know what she's capable of.
yeah, it's true. But I just wonder, like, how much of that is public knowledge at this point? And
Right.
obviously, there'd be certain characters that we have to know. And if we're in this world, it's been 20 years, and Thor just kind of comes and goes. But I find that question really, really interesting. And, you know, we get a sense in the Guardians of the Galaxy what the cosmic universe is like. And not that she's not really talked about much in
No.
those worlds. And so, you know, maybe she just really keeps a low profile and only is called in when she needs to be called in.
And that's why she's got a pager.
Yes. Great point. It all ties back to the
Could
pager.
they come up with something different?
Why?
I guess if it works.
I mean, in this reality here, she leaves Earth in 1995 and she's just floating around. I mean, it feels like that's the first time she's come back.
And then you don't see or hear from her again until she saves Stark.
Yes. In space.
Yeah.
And
So-
Nebula, come on. Give credit to Nebula.
Nebula.
Who we were talking about FanX earlier. We got to see a panel with Karen Gillan and the two actors from Doctor Who a couple of years ago, and for some reason they gave us passes to sit right in the front row. So Karen Gillan, Nebula, like just
right there.
just a few feet. That was cool. That was pretty neat. Are you doing FanX this year? Do you know?
I'm gonna try and do at least
Okay.
one day.
Good.
I would like to go and go all 3 days, and because Mike lives there.
Oh, okay.
Mike gets a hotel and he stays there. He goes to every single day.
We got an Airbnb
So-
across from the center last year and just went back and forth. The kids get a little overwhelmed if we're
Yeah,
there
oh
too
yeah.
much. So it's nice to have a little home
It's-
base that we can go back to.
It's a lot of stimulus.
But last year I presented a couple of different panels. My wife talked about nursing and pop culture, and I talked about Captain America, because that's what I do. And everybody gives me an audience to talk about Captain America. I'm
That's
just going to
right.
launch into it.
Any chance.
Or captains. I need captains to talk about. And 2019, this one came
Yep.
out. Okay. I don't think we will get that she'll return. Or did we already get that?
I thought we already
I think I already got it. Oh,
Blah. Doing what cats do.
yeah,
I forgot about this one.
I did too. It's pretty good, actually. Because it does answer a question that I had forgotten about. So it works. But they're patient with it too.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, it's real.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, the Tesseract goes away. We don't see it in the first Iron Man, do we?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't see it.
And then
We don't see it until, again, you're timey-wimey stuff here. You're flipping me around. But we don't see it until First Avenger, right? I think that's when we first see it in the movie release timeline. Is that
Oh
right?
yeah, but I mean, we saw it in the first Avenger. We see it in this movie, and now we're not going to see it again.
Until Avengers.
No, we see it at the end of Thor.
Oh yeah, we see it at,
That-
yeah, we
right?
see it
Is
at the
that
end.
right?
That's right. We see it at the end of Thor, then we see it full on in
In
Avengers.
Avengers.
Yeah.
The power of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. I don't
All
know.
right.
2 down.
2 down. And how many to go?
31 left.
It sounds better. Just talk about what you've
Right.
accomplished and what you
That's
haven't
right.
accomplished.